Hey everyone, welcome to our live webinar, live podcast. We're still working on what we're going to call it. I'm one of your panelists today, Mark Cerniglia, co-founder of Spotlight Branding. Tell you more about that in just a second. But today's webinar is all about the race to rock bottom, a price where you don't want to win. Really excited you've all joined us here today. We've got a couple of introductions. Kind of want to explain the format today. I think it's going to be kind of unique. I hope you guys really enjoy it, and then we'll dive into the content. So first, let me do this. Before I introduce these other wonderful faces that are here with us, and you should see our videos. Hopefully you see video on your screen as well as the actual title of the webinar as well. So you should be seeing 3 videos as well as that title. If you're not, go ahead and drop a message in the content box. Should be on the bottom right of your computer, depending on your setup. We do have some behind the scenes people who will chime in here in just a moment, and they'll be able to help you behind the scenes if need be. But let me give you guys some quick context for the experience today. We're trying something really unique. This is going to really not be your traditional webinar where we're just talking at you, going through a bunch of slides. Our goal today is to kind of create a really awesome roundtable discussion. We've got 2 guests with us that are very experienced in building successful law firms. You're going to hear about that in just a second. But our goal is really to create conversation, to create dialogue, and we want you guys to be part of it. So we want you to be dropping comments during. We want you to be asking questions. We're going to have an official Q&A at the end, but if we have time and you ask a good enough question during the broadcast, we'll actually potentially talk about that during instead of just saving it for the end. So make sure you take advantage of the chat section there on the bottom right. So let's go ahead and get started by introducing you to who we have today. We're going to start off with Brett Tremblay. Brett, give everyone a wave. There he is. So let me tell you guys about Brett real quick. So I've actually known Brett for a while now, about 5 or 6 years. He's actually been a client of Spotlight Branding as well, which of course we appreciate. But the thing about Brett from the Tremblay Law Firm, and he's the owner, operator, solo owner of Tremblay Law Firm. Back when I met Brett, it was a one-person shop. It was just him. And here we are, Brett, what, about 5 years later? Mm-hmm. And you're about to cross the multi-million-dollar mark in revenue over a 12-month period. So in less than 5 years, from one guy to multi-million-dollar law firm, I think you got about 6 attorneys at this point, about 14 or 15 staff. So it can be done. And I think the most important thing, Brett, is, are you happier now? Or were you happier 5 years ago when it was a simpler law firm with less people?
I'm definitely a lot happier now. No question.
Excellent. So it is, okay, yeah, exactly. So you can build a law firm that's successful and makes money and be happy at the same time. And if you think Brett's an anomaly, let me also introduce you to Vanessa Vasquez, who is also the owner operator of her law firm. And her story is very similar. I mean, Vanessa, I guess I've known you about a similar time, about 5 years now. You're also a client of Spotlight Branding, and you're in a similar place, right? I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, just you. I think you had like a part-time assistant, right?
Yep. Yep.
And here we are, 4 or 5 years later, and your revenues are going like crazy. I've had the honor of seeing you really focus on your practice areas over the last couple of years, right? Probate, family law, estate planning, and really see you niche down in that area and kind of become one of the go-to firms in Miami, Florida for that. And you're up to about 10 people now, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and both of these people are here today because they know what it's like to be down in the weeds competing on price, but more importantly, they know how to rise above it and get away from that, and you're gonna hear a lot of that today. And I should have mentioned Brett, I'm sorry, Brett focuses on business law. Okay, so we have some different practice areas here with us today. Finally, myself, before we dive in, like I said, my name is Mark Cerniglia. I'm the owner, operator as well of Spotlight Branding. So we're on the marketing side. We focus on doing internet marketing for law firms. We've been doing this for about 7 years, have over 150 clients all across the country. And the reason I do Spotlight Branding and really the reason that we had a vision for today's webinar is because I really believe that there's a better way for lawyers to be marketing their practice online. I think that better way is something that's actually very much neglected by a lot of other internet providers out there. We'll get into some of it today, I guess, but not too much actually. But in short, I'm passionate about building a strong brand. I'm passionate about helping you guys create more referrals and not really get caught up in the race on Google and things like that. Because as you might find out a little bit today, those things don't actually pay dividends as much as really focusing on the right things, which is your brand and generating more referrals. And that's what Spotlight Branding is really passionate about. And that's kind of what I take my time up with every single day. So that said, one last person I want to introduce. We've got Cody Lanham in the background. Cody is your man behind the chat board today. And so I just want Cody to pop on real quick audio-wise and say hello and tell you guys how you can be interacting with him throughout our time here today. Cody, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thank you for everybody for being here. There's a chat section on your screen. If you have a question, chime in. Please put it there. I'll document the questions as we move along. If something pertains to a specific topic that they're covering, I'll try my best to chime in at that moment and inject that question. If not, they will be saved to the end. But let us know what you have and the questions that you have, and we'll make sure to get them answered. Thank you.
Thanks, Cody. And so, like I said, if you guys ask a certain question during that we actually want to get to, Cody will actually chime in and kind of interrupt us. Otherwise, we'll save some things for the end. And last thing I want you guys to know, I already kind of said it, but what Vanessa, Brett, and I are going for today is really kind of a discussion experience. We want you to feel like you're sitting in these rooms with us. So you know what? We might interrupt each other once in a while. We don't want you to feel like you're being presented to. We want you to feel like you're part of this discussion. I can see Brett ready to interrupt me right now. He's trying to think of a creative way to do so. I got your number, Brett. But let's go ahead and get started. So Cody, you can go ahead and flip to the next slide. What we've done today is we've divided this into 3 talking points. So we're going to spend about 9 or 10 minutes on each talking point before we move on. So really only 3 overall points to get at. And the 3 of us are going to dive into that together. And we'd love for you to engage us on the chat and also put some questions up there. So Vanessa, Brett, the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to how to really lose this price war that you don't want to be winning, really, and really get away from it, right? I think the first thing that people need to do is just to decide that they're not going to compete on price anymore, okay? And that can mean a lot of different things. I think it starts with mindset, really recognizing whether or not price is important. I think it has to do with how you offer your services in your consultation. It's a willingness to raise your rates. We're going to get to marketing and how you market yourself better. We're going to get to some other things about how you can improve your law firm, but I really think it starts with a willingness to decide that you're just not going to compete on price anymore. So Vanessa, let's start with you. We'd love to get your thoughts on kind of how you think, or I guess better yet, how you stopped competing on price. What did that look like for you? Tell us about that, and we'll have some conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. So at the end of the day, what I think is so important about making sure that you're not competing on prices, it's very easy for starting attorneys to sort of think, oh, I have to be the cheapest, I don't have any experience. And that's not necessarily the right mindset. The mindset that really we as attorneys should have is, what kind of value can I provide my clients? One of the things that I saw the most frequently when I started out on my own was these, for family law, for example, and divorces. I'm in Miami, which is a very competitive market, and you would see attorneys offering an uncontested divorce for a few $100s, $300, $400, $500. All I would think to myself is, how are they making any money doing that? Because at the end of the day, it does require work to prepare everything. You have to have a hearing. So, so these attorneys were ultimately sort of going all the way to the bottom of the barrel in order to scoop up whatever's down there. And I decided that wasn't something that I wanted to do, because I'd have to have such a volume of people that it would be so much more work than it was worth just to bring those people in the door. And I imagine that some people are using this kind of as a loss leader and trying to bring people in the door and then trying to sell them on, upsell them on something else. But I don't know, to me, that just felt very sneaky, very...
Well, you're also bringing in price-conscious people from the beginning that way. So even if your intent was to try to sell a more premium service, you're attracting somebody who's already, in a different... Their disposition is to want to negotiate price, right?
Exactly. So, so we did sort of, the way that I've designed it is, for the uncontested cases, we have different packages. And it's a basic, a standard, and a premium package. And what that allows me to do is be able to sort of offer, this is what will be required to get you divorced. And then when they come back with, oh, that's a little bit more than I wanted to spend. Instead of simply giving people a discount or saying, okay, well, maybe I could work with you on the price, it's like, well, here's the next lowest package. Doesn't have everything that, that I just told you that we could do with your premium package, but here's something that's, that might fit your price point a little better. Oh, but I want those premium things. I want, those bells and whistles. And I'm like, well, those bells and whistles cost money. So, so it allows you to sort of be price sensitive, but be able to offer sort of differences. But it's definitely not ever something as low as $400 or $500 for an uncontested divorce, because that's just not workable. As a long term, that's just not workable.
Brett, what about you? Are you doing any $100 business formation these days?
No. Well, and we've had a lot of people say, why don't you have a product that competes with, Legal Shield and have like $100 a month entry level program? And maybe somebody's been successful doing that, but the problem is it's still an open file and it still creates management and calendaring and open systems and monitoring. And so it's a lot of admin work for, almost no money. But I think even more important, upselling people that only want to pay $100 a month for, good business legal advice, is they have already come to know you as a firm or a person who is very inexpensive anyway, and who sold them on a cheap price instead of on high value. And so that's something that we have constantly shied away from. And it's just hard to sell people on price and then halfway through the relationship flip that around to say, we're going to charge you a lot more now because we used to not give you value, but now we do, and now we really want to take care of you. So that's been our strategy.
One of the things that I've seen be really important too, I think, is that I think for your own self, as the lawyer or the person in the consultation, is really starting to believe that that person doesn't really care about price as much as maybe you think they do, and maybe even they don't care about price as much as they think they do. I've heard a lot of people out there talk about, and for those here that are part of the How to Manage a Small Law Firm community, I know that our John Robbins has talked a lot about this too. The idea that you're not just selling people legal solutions, you're selling them the experience, you're selling them an outcome, right? It's really about where they are right now and where they want to be when this is all said and done. And if they really believe that you guys are the right people to get them from here to here, what is that worth? And I feel like when the conversation's about getting from here to here, price becomes less of an object, and that's why I think there's really something to mindset and kind of getting past a belief that price is what matters, and instead focusing on the value you're offering somebody. Vanessa, you mentioned the bells and whistles, and even you and I were talking about before today's webinar about how it's not just showing off the bells and whistles, but it's helping them understand how those bells and whistles are either going to get them from here to here faster or better, or maybe even more likely, right? Or just make it a smoother process. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, do you feel like there is kind of an obstacle kind of getting over that?
Well, I mean, and I see it a lot in our family cases with settlement agreements where you don't know what you don't know. So at the end of the day, being able to help people understand that you're paying for my experience, that you're paying for me. I've been a family attorney, I've been an attorney for 15 years. So you're not just paying for me to fill out some paperwork, and deposit it at the court, but that you're actually, getting the value of my litigation experience, of all of the trials that I've been at, of the continuing education that I do every single year to make sure that I am at the top of my game with my knowledge. You're paying for all of that. And I really stress it home with settlement agreements where, I basically explain to people, you don't know what you don't know. I know what you don't know. And I try to give those clients that understanding of, listen, if this happens, this is all the ways it could go wrong. Oh, wow, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. And that's really what you're paying for, is all the things you didn't think of, because it seemed like it was something very simple. And people struggle to understand that those LegalZoom, those, all those services where they're offering you basically paperwork, it doesn't come with that, with that value of my experience, my knowing, oh, that judge typically does X. or that judge, no, that judge typically does Y. So, that really becomes helpful when you're in the middle of a case, because that's what you're paying for. You're paying for my services, not just the actual work that I'm doing for you.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and comment on something you said, Mark, which is that you can't assume that somebody only cares about price or that that's the main thing they care about. In fact, you should have in your glide path or your marketing ways to make sure that you're not getting the people that are competing on price. Our intake person, if somebody calls and says, well, how much does it cost to do X, Y, and Z? Their response is, well, is price your number one concern when looking for an attorney, or is price your number one concern? And flat out, sometimes it is. And we just don't answer that question, and we respectfully move on because we don't want to get ourselves into a bidding war. But it's interesting. Vanessa had said something when we were talking one time about the difference between quoting retainers and hourly fees. And there is a thought process that, in our consultations, we'll say that we're not the cheapest firm in town and that we're proud of that. But then we'll mention we're not the most expensive firm in town either, and we're certainly not when you consider the downtown firms that have a lot more overhead than we do. So you can take someone from A to B and then say, what's that worth to you? And if it's really worth $20,000 to that person, but it's only going to take you 2 hours to solve the problem, people will still say, well, I can find someone else who will deliver that same value and not ask me for the flat fee of $20,000. Or I can, if your retainer is $10,000, that's a lot for me right now. When the number, that clients really should care about is the hourly rates, because at the end of the day, the retainer is just the initial deposit to the case anyway. So we have raised our hourly prices in the past 5 years multiple times, and have never had somebody come back and say, you went from 345 to 365 and it's just not worth it to me. That is not.
You have some experience with raising your rates successfully, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you and I started working together, I think my hourly rate might have been $250, and that went up to $3, and then $350. I like round numbers, so I've never done the 45s and 65s, and now we're at $400. And we've had very little pushback from our clients with the fact that they're dealing with a $400 attorney, a $400 an hour attorney. With the times that we've had anything, it's oh well, is there an associate that's a little cheaper? And we have that, and our ability to have a broad range of staff is what allows us to sort of make sure that their retainer does go well on its way, that they're getting paralegal services for $150, and they're getting junior associates for $275, and of counsel associates for $300 or $350. So I mean, we have a good range. So even when it comes up, we have the ability to accommodate that because we have a lot of attorneys, but we have a lot of staff that's able to help with that. But at the end of the day, we have the possibility of telling them, well, listen, if this is a problem, well, we can have a different staffer handle it, and then you'll get the people that are like, no, I only want you to handle it. Okay, but I am the most expensive person in the firm. Are you sure? Nope, I want you to handle. Okay. So, we, like Brett said, we really get a lot more pushback on our retainers because I guess they're not used to dealing with lawyers. So it's kind of like focusing on your monthly payment price when you buy a car instead of the total price that you're paying. If you walk in and you say, I need to walk out with a $400 payment, they're going to get you the most expensive car they can get you for, financing it for 6 years,
Right.
maybe, because this is what you said you wanted to pay, as opposed to somebody walks in, okay, I'm willing to pay this much on a car, and then sort of dealing with all the details. So sometimes it's, we kind of get in our own way when we're concerned about raising our rates.
And one of the things we haven't really talked about too, I think actually one of you may have hinted at it, but stop, like, the reason we're telling you out there is to just literally stop. Is that also, that doesn't just mean, it might mean raise your rates, right? It might mean look at, what Vanessa was talking about, offer options, talk about how you're offering more value. But sometimes it just kind of means, and Brett, I think you did allude to this a little bit, sometimes it just means when they start asking about price, whether it's on the phone or in the consultation, sometimes you just have to shut that down, right? And you just say
Right.
that's not, like we know the value of what we do, and I had somebody say to me once, it's like, I value what I do so much that I'm not willing to negotiate the value of it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not it's worth.
Well, right. And in that scenario, it just becomes about communicating the value, because there's different ways to approach that. You can approach it as if you're offended that somebody would even consider the fact that you're not worth $350 or $400 an hour, which comes from a kind of high and mighty, I'm a very special lawyer type of attitude. And you forget that the average consumer doesn't spend that type of money on those type of services very often. So yeah, right. And so it's okay to have high prices, but you have to expect to be able to communicate the value and tell people why it's worth it. Look, I'm not gonna come off my price, but here are all the things that you get, and here's how we take you from point A to point B and why it's worth it. So I just think that's an important distinction.
Great. So let's go ahead and time-wise. I think it's time to transfer to our next topic here. Real quick, before we do, to the users out there's two things I just want to point out real quick. I think we were having a little bit of difficulty getting the chat working, but it should be up now. So if you were trying to send us a message, you should be able to now. And I also meant to mention earlier, in order to just create a better experience, I would encourage a lot of you on your screen, you can actually expand the size of the video a little bit, because I know it's a lot more about us talking than it is about the slide. If you just hover your mouse right below the video in the middle, you're actually going to see a bar that you can click and drag that down. You can actually change the size of everything. Just a small little tip might improve your experience if you resize that. All right, guys, now we're switching to our second of 3 points. Again, all of this, if anyone joined late, all of this is about the race to the rock bottom, the price war you don't want to win. So we're talking about how to lose that battle and how to really win the battle you want to, which is getting quality clients, having them pay you appropriately, and really building the firm you want. So our first talking point was to just stop competing on price and to get over it, that it starts with you, not your potential clients. The second thing I want to talk about, guys, is leveling up your law firm. So I feel like it starts in your head, right? Not competing on price anymore, but now you have to begin to actually maybe increase the value in your firm, or just make some tweaks. Maybe some are small, some are large, but find areas you can level up your law firm so that you are offering a service that is more premium or better, or fill in whatever adjective you'd like. Brett, let's start off with you this time. We've got a couple notes up there on the screen. We'll talk about some of them, and we'll go some other directions as well. But how do you think somebody levels up their firm, especially when it relates to not competing on price?
Well, as they say, niches bring riches, and the more narrow your niche, the more likely it is that people think of you as the expert in just that area. So we do business law and franchise law and business litigation. So if we wanted to have as narrow possible as a niche, and maybe someone has taken this advice much better than we have, then you could be the expert just on non-compete agreements. So it's all you ever speak about. It's all all your marketing is just on enforcing or getting out of a non-compete agreement, which is a lot of litigation on that area. You're certain to be thought about as when that issue comes up in the legal community and referred to. And then if you're the expert, you say, look, I already know the law in this area, so it's not going to take me any time to research and to put together our memoranda of law, or to learn the areas, because it's all we do every day, and that's why you're paying a premium, because it's going to take me half as much time as it would another lawyer. The way that we do it is in every consultation, I'll say, look, we don't do criminal defense like a lot of firms try to add on. We don't do even bankruptcy, which can be business related. We don't do real estate transactional work. We are a business-focused firm, and we serve as the basically outside counsel for all of our general counsel clients. And because we're focused every day on your business, on your operating agreements, on your bylaws, on your employment agreements, and your structuring, then that's the type of service you're getting, and that's what our marketing is also feeding into. So people, I think, are for sure going to expect that, because we know more, you're going to pay us more than you would somebody that's practicing door law, And you know, everyone, there's a lot of attorneys in Miami that still one attorney and a paralegal, and they're networking like crazy. So they're out there and they're at least making an impact in terms of meeting people and coming across potential clients, but for 5 or 6 different practice areas. And you're going to expect to pay somebody like that less, in my opinion, than you would a firm solely focused on one area.
I agree. I think that as a family practitioner primarily, we have a name for the people that do that in family law. We call them dabblers, and it's the attorneys that are dabbling in family law, and it's so dangerous in that particular field that it becomes something where you really don't understand the nuances, not necessarily of the law. Anybody could read the statutes, anybody could read a book, but it's about knowing, you know, how the judges in your division are ruling. It's about knowing, you know, what's standard, and be able to explain things to the clients in a way that they can understand. I mean, there's trends that may not be written down anywhere, but when you're practicing in court all the time and you're seeing these trends, you're able to, you know, to properly advise your clients, like, listen, this is not a good position to take, because ultimately the trend in this courtroom is that, you know, for example, equal time sharing for both parents. And you know, you get that you get that experience in a way that somebody who's doing door law, who is doing everything, and who gets one family case a year, they're just not able to do that as well. So I mean, I think it's so important to be more specialized, to be more niched, you know, and even to think of who your ideal client is, because servicing multi-million-dollar divorce is not the same as a middle class to professional divorce. I mean, there's just not.
Getting the client experience now a little bit.
Yes, I mean, you're dealing with different problems. You're dealing with you know, with a certain type of expectation with one set of clientele that you don't have with another, and you know, and that takes away from mental energy. It takes away from your ability to properly serve your clients when you don't, you know, when you're sort of not knowing who that ideal client is that you want to service, and niching yourself into being able to serve those clients better.
So, you know, why specifically, real quick, do you guys feel like, and don't get me wrong, you've hinted at this a little bit, but in like 1 or 2 sentences, why is niching down? Why is focusing on a specific practice area or a specific type of clientele, why is that going to help you directly when it comes to not competing on price anymore?
Well, ultimately, it's because you are providing what those people need. You are coming in with a service that is valuable to them because you are specifically thinking of them when you're coming up with it. You, I can tell you that in our office, we tend to service more middle class clients. We don't tend to use as many outside experts, which takes up time and money and effort to, you know, to deal with them. That means that I'm more available to be able to schedule things with my clients, with the courts, etc. So my clients do expect and have an ability to have sort of a quicker turnaround than perhaps an attorney whose focus is a little bit different. And we're able to, you know, I've come up with ways to make sure that my clients are being serviced in a more efficient manner, and actually a less expensive manner for them. We have a client relations specialist, and we don't charge for speaking to her. So she's really the connection to our clients, you know, and that way, anytime they have a question, anytime that they have, you know, when's my mediation scheduled? When is this happening? Did opposing counsel respond? They have a point of contact who's always the same person, telling them exactly what's going on with their case, and they don't get billed for that. And that's sort of built into our practice. So our fees might be a little bit higher on one end, but then we sort of give you more value in the other end by having staff that you can speak to on anything that's not legal advice, that kind of stuff. It's always going to go to an attorney. But otherwise, you know, you have somebody that you're able to speak to on a regular basis as frequently as you need, that keeps you informed of whatever's going on with your case.
What you got, Brett?
You said 1 or 2 sentences, right?
Sorry.
I had to make fun of Vanessa real quick because I'm about to give her a shout out. But speaking of
Those were
dabbling,
2 sentences. So moving on.
no. I know. I have to tell this story though. Vanessa called them dabblers. I dabbled early on in my career in doing a will for someone who's already a client who asked me, like, I'll do them a favor, and I really messed it up, and Vanessa had to save me. So there's another reason not to dabble. But in terms of the 1 or 2 sentences, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich says that people paid for specific applied knowledge, not for general knowledge. And so if you actually want to get paid, the more narrow your knowledge base, the more you can charge for it. We all have those friends that are good at general trivia, but it's hard to make money that way.
Yeah, and I love what you just said there too, because it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the previous talking point about mindset. Because you went to law school, you went out and got this very difficult degree. You are an expert in your field, and charge like it. And if people are having trouble understanding that because they think they can go to LegalZoom or somewhere else and do something themselves, then maybe part of what the job of a law firm is to somewhat, to a degree, educate your potential clients on why what you do is a specialty and not just a commodity. I think that's part of the responsibility you have to accept, right?
I think as lawyers, we tend to try to justify our rate instead of justifying the value. So when they're like, oh, why are you a $400 an hour attorney? Well, let me talk to you about how long I've been doing this.
All
Let
my
me talk to you.
credentials.
Exactly.
Let me tell you about all my awards.
Let me show
Cody,
you.
maybe drop that in the comments. Don't justify your rate, justify your value.
Exactly, because ultimately maybe somebody who's straight out of law school will find it difficult to justify a very high rate, but there's a reason why you're choosing that rate to begin with. If you're comparing yourself to other similarly established people, if maybe you're a baby lawyer, but you've been a paralegal for 20 years, so you've been dealing with these problems for 20 years, that brings a level of experience that might not be obvious from the length of time that you've had your law degree. So at the end of the day, it's really about figuring out why you're worth, what you believe you're worth to your clients. And instead of saying, okay, well, let me reduce my rate for you, explain to them why this is a good value for what they're getting.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to mention real quick, you guys, about dabbling. One of the analogies I always make when you think about niching down, and that's obviously a big focus for Owen right now, is, it's like if you needed heart surgery and you're talking to your heart surgeon, he's like, yeah, I dabble in heart surgery a little bit, but I'm also a nephrologist, I also, I can do surgery anywhere. It's all the same. It's all the human body, you know what? You're not going to be thrilled about that. But with law, I think that sometimes clients aren't as savvy as maybe they should be at the beginning, right? But if you talk to them and explain it to them, of course they're going to go, gosh, like the fact that you could help me with this area of law and then this completely other unrelated area of law is not actually a benefit to me. And I think a lot of lawyers out there are concerned that they're not going to get enough clients if they niche down. But we got to move on. But let me just get y'all's confirmation on this. And if you have a quick ad, please feel free. But for anyone out there that's listening right now, can you guys just dispel the belief that if I focus in closer on my practice areas or on a specific clientele, that I'm going to be potentially taking money out of my pocket? Can you guys just either nod your heads or make one quick comment to just dispel that? Because I still hear that a lot, that people are worried about that.
I think initially, if somebody says, I want to hire you for X, and you say, but I only do Z, well then yes, you don't get the money from X. So but then you're going to get 3 more Z's when you were wasting time doing X. So it's an initial effect, but it'll come back to you faster.
And you're going to send that X to your buddy who does X. And then when your buddy has Z, then he's going to send those cases to you. So at the end of the day, it's not worth doing everything because it also limits your impact. We have quite a few attorneys that we refer cases to, and of course they think of us the minute that either a probate or a family case crosses their desk. So it allows you to expand your network. And I have to be honest with you, probably 60 to 70% of our cases are coming through some of those, from referrals, whether from other attorneys, former clients, so it's important to be able to do that. And when you're trying to do everything, you don't have that. You don't have that network that you're sending
Yeah.
business to.
And just to kind of tie it home before we move on, I think, going back to that kind of joke about the heart surgery example, if you had to pay out of pocket, God forbid, for a surgery like that, and you had two options, right? The heart surgeon or the one who dabbles in all kinds of surgery, I'm fairly confident that even if the heart surgeon who focuses on that charges double, you're probably going to do everything you can to do that. And the God's honest truth is that almost every time someone is dealing with a legal problem, it's something that's pretty significant. It might not be life or death, but it's pretty important, right? Whether it's their family, their business, avoiding jail time, setting things up for when they're not going to be with us anymore, whatever it might be. The issues are pretty significant. And so if nothing else, niching, focusing in, creating a better client experience for that niche audience is going to be a great way to be able to avoid competing on price and really charge the right prices. So let's go ahead and flip to our third and final talking point. Cody,
Hey, Mark,
yeah,
yeah, so we actually have it's not a question, it's a comment, but I thought it was very relevant. Mitchell actually mentioned that, dabbling in areas that you really do not know, can lead to malpractice and ethical issues. So I didn't know if you guys wanted to elaborate a little bit on that.
I think that's pretty clear cut. I agree.
Does Mitchell have a story for us, Cody? Is there a story behind this?
No story, just chiming in as you all discuss each topic. That's it.
No, that's a great point. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, some of you guys even kind of hinted at it. It's not just about the client experience, but you get better when you focus. Your team gets better. You become more efficient. Your margins actually improve, right? I mean, both of you are living examples of this.
Yeah.
So, all right, Cody, let's go to the next one. We got our third and final talking point. One that I'm excited about is the marketing guy in the room. I think the third and final thing to focus on in this price war is to market the right way. Okay, so let me go and kind of share my thoughts first, and then either one of you can chime in after that. But this can mean a few different things, and we'll talk about a couple of them. But for me, marketing the right way starts with where you're marketing. And one of the first notes we put up there is don't compete in the weeds. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of shoppers out there that are price shopping. And if you focus on marketing where they are, that's who you're going to attract. At Spotlight Branding, we talk a lot about how usually people searching on Google are the biggest price shoppers out there. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do some of that. As a matter of fact, I know that Brett and Vanessa both have had some success doing some things on the internet with search engines and things, but I also know that for both of them that they do a lot of other things, that they're not relying on that. And so, while there are ways to overcome someone who is price conscious at first, and I think we're probably going to talk about some of those in a second, and we also have already, I think one of the things it starts with is just marketing in smart ways and in the right places. If you're super focused, as an example, on search engines and getting potential clients from there, you're probably going to be having a lot more price conversations than you'd like to versus maybe referrals or getting potential clients through speaking engagements, workshops, referrals from past clients, referrals from colleagues. So I really like to focus a lot of effort on where you're going to get those high quality potential clients. And so a lot of it just starts with marketing in the right places. Would love to hear from you guys. You guys can elaborate on that or even take it in a different direction. But what are some of the things that you guys are thinking important when it comes to marketing the right way and how that really takes the focus off of price and puts it in the right places?
Well, I mean, you want to be thinking about what kind of clients is it that you're looking for, and you want your branding to reflect that. So I can give you an example. I a lot of people don't want to be thinking about getting divorced at the end of the year. And once Thanksgiving and Christmas start kind of looming pretty quickly, people are not thinking about family court unless you're already there. So you're not. So in our practice, we know that our family cases are going to slow down near the end of the year. So we've made a conscious decision to market more now in October to those family clients and market more to the estate planning and or the probate clients as the year is coming to an end. So I reached out to my rep over at Spotlight, over at you guys, and I said, listen, all I want this month is I want to focus on the alimony reform that, people need to be thinking that if, at the end of the year, alimony is changing because of the tax treatment. And I want to be really hammering that home right now, because the kind of cases that I'd love to get right now are people with an uncontested divorce, so we could file now in October, we can have it done before the end of the year. So, so we are designing our marketing around the kind of people that we are trying to get right now. And the message that our marketing is sending out is for that. So our social media is more primed towards family cases, and our blog is primed for family cases, and our newsletter is primed. So, I mean, we sat down and we sort of did a calendar of what it was that we wanted, the kind of cases that we wanted to focus on between now and the end of the year. And right now it's, it's divorces, and it's actually primarily for men. Because if the man thinks that it can be resolved before the end of the year because he wants to, to take advantage of that alimony reform, that's going to be a good client for us, because it's going to be somebody that, that is going to be willing to offer alimony. It's going to be somebody who's willing to get this done before the end of the year.
Real quick, just do me a favor, connect that a little more for me on price. Is it that by focusing on the most optimal time, it's because there's more of a sense of urgency? So like they're less pressed. Like how does that connect to obviously being able to get the rates that you want?
Well, at the end of the day, if it's somebody who has the knowledge about what these changes are that are looming, or if I'm educating you on the changes that are looming and why it's important, it makes it more likely that you're going to walk in the door now instead of walking in the door later. Our busiest time of the year tends to be January, February with family cases, because people are using their tax refund money to hire the family lawyer, and the holidays are over. And then you're sort of thinking, oh, okay, now I really know I can't be with this person. I was miserable this holiday season. So we're trying to bring those people in a little bit earlier, bring those cases in now in October, instead of bringing those cases, potentially in January. And we're trying to educate people as to why that would be important, which is, the alimony changes that are coming because of the tax reform that that took place last year.
How about you, Brett?
All right. Well, I mean, first of all, those are really good points from Vanessa on marketing, and as you asked her, sort of marketing the right way to get the prices you want. I mean, that's very high-end strategy. I wanted to touch on the difference between branding and marketing, and how the branding can help you not race to the bottom on price, because I have strong opinions in this area that I've developed over the past 7 years, coming right up on the 7th year anniversary, and having dealt with a lot of different web companies and represented web companies, and having worked with you all these years, Mark, and we've had these discussions. But it starts with a strategy. You either have time or you have money. And if you have money, then you can trade the money to get what you want. And if you don't, then you got to trade your time. The way that I look at a website is that more than half of consumers now find their attorney online. So if you, I look at a website like real estate, okay? It's location, 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 but it's also how, how your building looks. So you can have a complete dilapidated building on Main Street, or you can have the best, highest end mansion 3 blocks behind Main Street.
Wait a second, Brett, are you saying that appearance matters?
Yeah, exactly.
People are going to value your services the way you want?
Right, and a quick story, I have a friend back in New Mexico. They bought an old train station that had, it was like 19th century, beautiful wood, and they turned it into their law office. So my friend said their closing rate went up to over 90% because people walked in and were just so blown away at how incredible it was. I asked him, Yeah, I ask him to send me pictures, but essentially, you know, it's the same. Physical real estate to me is the same as online real estate. So if you build a beautiful website that communicates what you want it to, and then your Facebook page has the same logo, it's called branding integrity, right? Design integrity, which you guys, you know, helped us put together our logo, and then you made our Facebook page look the same as our Twitter, as the same as our online presence, the same as our newsletter, so that everything is consistent in how it looks. When I started, I didn't have two nickels to rub together, but I said, I'm going to build this beautiful website, this online, you know, mansion real estate presence. I'm going to be off of Main Street, so not a lot of people are going to find me online. There's a huge difference between building it and then, you know, I guess they will come. It doesn't work that way unless you put in additional resources to having people find you online. So if that's not your strategy and you don't have the money, then, you know, I suggest doing what I did. I spent the next 5 years myself hitting the ground running, networking, meeting people, joining groups, getting myself out there so that I could drive traffic to my what I consider high-end real estate, but I just had to give people directions. You go to Main Street and then you take a right and a left and a right, and that's where we are. And then as I built, you know, what people are still going to go to your website when they meet you and they're referred. So they say, wow, this guy's impressive. He's building something, or she's building something. And then as we got more clients and we got more money and we were grinding, as they say, and working, then we started to say, now let's, you know, the nice thing about being online, you can move your real estate. Now let's try to get to the second page of Google. Let's try to get to the first place, right? Let's move closer to Main Street so we can layer in the organic networking referrals that we're getting, who are also making their impression about us online. And the reason I'm talking about building the brand is because what people perceive you to be is what you put out there. So if you have consistent high-end branding, then people will expect you to charge prices consistent with the effort you're putting online. And that's a fact, and you can't argue that if there's a horrible attorney that has really just incredible marketing and people don't know that attorney, they're going to think that they really know what they're doing, and vice versa.
Yeah, if I could just stay real quick, I mean, I remember one of our past conversations, you specifically, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I might be using from my own words here, but you made the comment about how every lawyer out there, they've all experienced this, when you know that you lost a potential client to somebody who you just flat out think you're better than, you know?
Yeah. And the interesting thing about what Brett was saying is that it's the same as when you charge a lot. Oh, they must be a better lawyer because their rate is higher.
Well, we believe that as consumers typically, don't we, when we buy products? And I think it's okay to recognize that applies here. So let's talk about that a little bit, right? Okay, so I mean, you know, charging more, you obviously assume there's more value. You know, Brett, to thing we were just talking about, I think that's why putting your best foot forward does matter. They're not going to know your credentials. They're not necessarily going to know how great you are outside of maybe whatever your website tells them, or your social media presence, or the 2 minutes they spent talking to you at a networking event, right? But let's do this. I want to make sure we only got a few minutes left here. We're going to do some Q&A. But you know, I know that both of you, obviously, because you work with Spotlight Branding, but I know both of you also have a lot of experience with seeing the role your website plays in this, but also content, right? So an email newsletter, blog content, social media content. Without getting too much into the strategy behind those things, because that could be a whole other webinar, how is it that you feel like your content actually impacts your ability to get the clients you want, and more importantly, charge those people what you want? Is there a relationship between that content and being able to charge what you want?
Oh, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, we use it in our glide path for our potential clients. We send them a newsletter, we send them an email when they've contacted us, and that email it links to our videos so that they can not only see the knowledge that we have, but be able to kind of get a more personalized view of the attorneys before they come in. When people don't hire us, okay, well, it was great meeting you. Here's our videos on whatever topic it is that they came to see us about. If it's a paternity case, it's a list of paternity videos. If it's an estate planning, so whatever they're doing, we're using our content to further demonstrate to them, you know, what what's available, for us to assist them with, and continues to showcase our expertise, beyond that initial contact. I've had clients that tell me that they've seen me, on TV because they got our newsletter that told them to see that. We've had people share our newsletter with other potential clients who then have contacted us. So, I mean, it really does, all the different pieces sort of hit different potential areas, right? So, I mean, our website is able to showcase everything that we have to offer, but our blog kind of delves a little bit deeper. Our newsletters kind of keep us top of mind. So, so it all kind of works together to be able to demonstrate a very professional, and experience and with a great level of expertise.
Well, you said a second ago, and I just want to echo it. You kind of said it quickly, is that you're showcasing your expertise, and for me, that struck a positive chord. Like that is why I think more than anything else, you want to have a great website, have blogs, have social media, because you're positioning yourself as an expert by offering these resources, by offering content. When people come to your website or they see your social media, it raises the bar subconsciously most of the time of what they expect from you. So you really are using the content to really build more of your brand and the expectation people have. And then by the time they walk in the door, and Brett, I know you can attest this, by the time they walk in the door, they're more educated and they already kind of know that you're the expert they want to work with. And at least for us at Spotlight Branding, that's a big buzzword. We want you to be seen as the expert at what you do because we feel like people are willing to pay for that. So Brett, what about you? Kind of any final comments on the marketing side before we move on to our Q&A?
Yeah, the content goes with credibility, but I'm not so effusive as people come to us and think they're the only guys in town that know X, Y, and Z, because there's a lot of lawyers in Miami, and frankly, we all go to law school and we all spend our careers learning certain things. So what I found is that by putting out so much content, people appreciate that you care more than others to take the time to put out resources for people to read. And I have a lot of people that surprise me that say, I read get your newsletters and I read the blogs and it's really good information. So it gives you credibility that I don't think they think that now we're the only ones that can help them, but they prefer to work with people that are constantly focusing on the solution. And Vanessa mentioned top of mind. So it definitely adds the expert layer, but that's just, to me, kind of the beginning. That's just the doorstep. I mean, you expect your lawyer to know what the heck they're talking about and what they're doing, right? But I want to work with the one who's constantly focused on Vanessa and we do lunch and learns. I learned from her in that area, and I've been doing blogs for 5.5 years now. And at first it was just to send out the newsletters, and I mentioned not putting a lot of money into SEO, which I never have, but organically we went from, again, way off Main Street to now we're getting 2,500 visitors a week to our website just for organically becoming the expert online. So then when you do go online and you see 7 years of blogs, you can't help but think that we know what the heck we're talking about.
Bingo. Yeah. So let's do this. So let's go ahead and we're going to bring Cody, our behind the scenes guru, back online here in a second. He's got a couple of questions I know have piled up through the chat. If you have some questions, please go ahead and drop them in there. Cody, I'm also going to ask that you go ahead and flip to the last slide. We're going to have the contact information for all three of us up there. I guess our websites, I should say. So look, if you want to get in touch with Brett or Vanessa, please go to their website, fill out their contact forms. I can't promise you that they're cheap, but who knows? Maybe they'll even give you their advice on building their practice for free. You never know. So feel free to reach out to them. I know they love to be helpful resources. But we're running, we've got about 5 minutes until we were scheduled to end. We'll do our best to hang around to answer all the questions. We understand if some of you have to sign off, but it's really important to us that you engage in this part. So we'll do our best to hang around as long as we can. This was our first time trying this new model, so thanks for bearing with us. We hope the content was helpful so far. And you know what? I guess you get a couple lawyers together and a marketing person, they like to talk, right? So, hey. All right, but Cody, are you there? Let's bring you back in.
Yeah, so we definitely have a few questions that have come in. This actually came in earlier in the conversation, and it's about flat fees. Do Brett and Vanessa, do you guys offer flat fees? Maybe talk a little bit about that. If not, what's your stance on them?
I've been burned on flat fees. We did a few acquisitions on flat fees. When you offer a flat fee, we've experienced that the client thinks they own you at that point. So suddenly they want 1 million revisions, and when you're about to close, they want a whole nother agreement. And too bad we have you on a flat fee. So we do FDD reviews and franchise agreements on a flat fee, but we try to stay away from it for the most part. And when we do it, we've learned to just put in a little asterisk saying firm reserves the right to demand or request additional funds if revision
Renegotiation.
exceed an unreasonable amount of amendments, etc., just to try to protect ourselves, because we've been burned. So I haven't figured out how to perfect that model, and I don't plan on trying to.
Yeah, so we actually offer for divorce, for family cases, it's really not workable when they're litigated because you just don't know what the other side is going to do. But for uncontested family cases, paternities and divorces that are uncontested, we do offer flat fees. And as I mentioned earlier, we have different packages, and we detail in our retainer agreement exactly what's included. These documents are included. This many, it's 2 revisions, 1 meeting, 1 court hearing. So we try to specify exactly what is involved with each package for uncontested, but it does allow us to be able to tell people, okay, well, you can get this, which is our premium package. Oh yeah, I really like that. Well, it's this much. Okay, well, I don't like that as much. Okay, well, here's other packages that might better fit your needs, but they don't offer everything that this package does. For estate planning, we also offer it because it is something that that it is a lot more manageable. Typically it's not like contracts that Brett handles that people are not changing a million parts of their estate planning usually between starting and finishing. So and again, we have the same as the uncontested. We have 3 levels. We have a basic, a standard, and a premium, and we've actually built it in so that our basic is just the documents that we believe are of utmost importance. The standard, it's going to be the documents that are basic plus an additional document, and then it includes actually a future change in those documents. So we're sort of building in what the biggest problem that people have with estate planning is, which is the fear of changing them because you're going to spend more money on it. So we build that in. And then our premium package actually includes all the same documents, but the changes are unlimited. And we've not been burned like Brett has. So, we have kept offering them. But it does give a lot of peace of mind to our clients that are willing to pay that premium price, which is substantially higher than what our basic price is. But you have that peace of mind built in to allow you to be able to come back later when your child ages out, or when a spouse passes away, or when circumstances in your life have changed.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll just say this before we move on real quick. I mean, we've made it work in Spotlight Branding. We do flat fee websites, flat fee monthly services. The key for us, and I've actually heard this from law firms who have done this successfully, is you just really got to, from what I've heard, you got to go all flat fee, because then what you can do is you can factor in the cases that really go above the average with the cases that go below the average. And you really got to find that middle price. So even when something takes longer than you expected, you're covered by the cases that took less time than expected. And it's really no different than for us. We have our flat fee services. Some people might have a little bit more needs when it comes to social media than others, but it balances out because of the price we charge. We didn't charge the minimum possible. So I know that works in our business. Cody, what else do you have for us?
So this applies to the conversation about niching down. Let me get to the question here. So Brett obviously has sub practices, franchise, business litigation, trademark, and Vanessa, along with family law, she has probate and estate planning. And it was asked, does Vanessa's estate probate work detract from her brand? And I think the question applies to Brett as well.
I mean, I think that ultimately, so our branding is about the work that we do to help families. So that comes from before your family with prenuptial agreements, during with postnuptial agreements, having the family sort of dissolve with a divorce or with a paternity matter, and then planning for your future with estate planning, and then dealing with the issues that are involved at the end of, near the end of life with probate and guardianship. So we really find that the fact that we are dealing with kind of like multi stages of a family are really, one that our branding is pretty unified.
No, not at all, because we're perfect.
Perfect.
In fact, it's just the opposite. I absolutely think it does. We do, for example, a lot of ADA defense, and we'll have people say, I didn't know you do that. Well, of course you don't know we do that. That's our fault, because if that's all we did, that's all we would talk about. And anytime you heard there was an ADA lawsuit, we would pop into your head. But if you're business litigation, what does that mean? We started out as a litigation firm, and then I got back to my kind of entrepreneurial roots of working with business owners and creating business. And I really love the strategy and the business sessions we have. And so then we started doing the general counsel, and you'd be a fool to say that it doesn't detract. And if you only did one small thing, in fact, our fourth quarter is going to be about refreshing on our branding, because we're going to be more business focused with kind of a niche litigation instead of talking about both. So when I'm out and about in the community, we're going to talk about a lot of franchise and general counsel. And then what we can do online is now we have the luxury of continuing to market some of the other facets online with landing pages, so that if you come to us for ADA, then that's what you'll think we do. So yeah, I mean, branding's a complicated game. I enjoy it, but fear of missing out, but then it's also going to backfire, because if you try to be too many things to too many people, no one's going to think about you unless you have, when we talk about franchise law, it always generates a discussion. When I say business law, what does that mean? It's just there's too much to it.
Awesome.
All right. So yeah, no, that was great. So Mark, maybe this question is for you. Maybe if you could be a little more intentional on a definition of what a premium brand is. I know we touched on it quite a bit. We talked a lot about, branding and some of the things that help, but maybe a definition would help.
All right. Well, I don't have an on the spot one sentence definition, but I mean, at the end of the day, when we talk about building a premium brand, because the thing is, it can mean something a little bit different to everyone. Like Vanessa talked about targeting, she works with a lot of middle class people. Well, someone who targets the middle class versus someone who targets the upper class, they both can still build premium brands, right, that target that specific clientele or a specific practice area. I think, in short, building a premium brand means building a brand or a reputation that really focuses on you and your firm as the experts at what you do. To Brett's point earlier, it also, I think, means some sort of feeling or way that you communicate that you care, that you're good at what you do. And then, honestly, we talk a lot in marketing, like in the marketing world in general, put law aside for a second. We talk a lot about the power of storytelling and how people are really captivated by stories. Matter of fact, what you might not realize as a lawyer, but a big part of what you're doing is you're helping somebody either rewrite or write a new chapter of their, in their story that's really significant to them. And, you play a big role in helping them get from this part of the story to the part of the story that they really hope to be in. And I think it's really important to understand. I share that because, interestingly enough, when it comes to law, I've found that enough attorneys aren't even doing the basics first of a premium brand, which is communicate that you're an expert, communicate that you care, and put all of your stuff together in a nice way to where you're impressive and you look like you know what you're doing, and that you're frankly superior to the competition. What's really cool is once you've done that, which will already put you a leg above the rest. And I think Brett and Vanessa, you guys can attest to that. It isn't like some of the stuff Spotlight Branding did for you guys was rocket science, right? It's just, it doesn't take much. You just have to kind of do things the right way. But when you do, I think another aspect that's really exciting, and going into detail for it, we'll have to wait for another time. But the real, I think, final cherry on top of a premium brand is a powerful, compelling story behind it. And if you want an example of this, you just look at Apple. Apple's always telling stories. They're always helping you understand how their products are going to, make your story better, or they're telling you the story behind themselves and why they're so passionate about what they do. So storytelling is really important. But I think a premium brand begins with people believing that your firm is a premium, high quality law firm. Do you guys, that was kind of a long answer, but do you guys have anything to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say, I guess kind of two things in conclusion, and it comes back to the premium brand is if you're to me, it's better to have a beautiful building online, if you will, like we talked about, even if you do mention 2 or 3 areas of law, or it's not that clear, but when somebody walks into your building, that's my analogy for having a really beautiful website that communicates and is well done and the right colors and the right pictures, is that they still feel like it's a premium brand. Maybe they do 2 or 3 things, but it's still better than having a, we know the good lawyers who are just a little bit maybe older, or they don't think that they need to put in the time and the effort, and what you put out there is you're communicating what your brand is about. And so be very conscious of what you put online. In addition, my last comment, I guess, would be there's probably a lot of us on here and a lot of friends who have tried to do the blogging on their own, and they come out, it's like, I have this new newsletter with a blog, and 3 months in a row you get this newsletter and then nothing for a year and a half, because we are all too busy to do the blogs ourselves, to do the website ourselves, to do the logo ourselves. And I think that's a huge pitfall, that if you really care about becoming a very acceptable brand, whether it's to the masses or just to the people you network with, then you'll put in the effort to really have consistent branding that shows that you care about everything you put out online.
I agree. I mean, it's all about the continuity. It's all about the putting out not just the premium content, but doing it on a regular basis so that people are expecting it, people are seeing it, and you're staying top of mind with everybody that is on your list and on your your Facebook groups and your Twitter groups and your LinkedIn groups and all the stuff that you magically handle for me.
And Mark, I want to say, we can now predictably anticipate getting business even from our own clients when we send our bi-monthly newsletters, which was an idea that I was told a long time ago. And when we first started sending out newsletters, we weren't necessarily getting business, and now we can, even if it's from our own clients, to say, oh yeah, I meant to ask them about this, or from people you haven't heard from in a long time. And so that's
back when it all started, they're probably not really going to negotiate, with price with you very much.
Yeah.
So let me kind of go and wrap us up here. There might be a couple lingering questions. I apologize for not getting to them. If for those of you that asked a question that didn't get answered, if you stay signed in, I will get with Cody and we'll type away some answers. If you guys want to stay signed in, I'd be happy to do that. But we do have to kind of wrap up and allow Brett and Vanessa get back to charging by the hour. But so let me kind of say this in closing to what's that?
A lot.
I just want to make this last comment about really not just to frame the last question that got asked, but our whole thing. I can't help but think about Starbucks as a great example of this. We're talking about premium brand. We're talking about price consciousness. I've talked about this before when I've spoken in the past. I mean, Starbucks is a company that's getting people to, with no complaints, pay $5 for a cup of coffee. And what they've done is they've positioned themselves as, what have they done? They've done everything we've talked about. They're willing to charge what they think the best cup of coffee should cost, whether you think it's the best or not. They've created a great customer experience, right? People love just hanging out at Starbucks. They're supposedly source the best beans in the world. So they are the experts at coffee. And they do it. And so I think that a big thing you need to think about is how can you Starbucks your law firm, honestly, is what I think. And you know what? Starbucks appeals to the upper class, middle class, any other class. I mean, there's a whole lot of ways to do it. And so I love the Starbucks example. Like any good little panelist show, 10 to 20 second final thoughts, final comments of wisdom.
Right, you start.
I complain about Starbucks prices every time I buy Starbucks, and yet I still buy Starbucks because I would rather people see me, human nature, if we're being honest with ourselves, with a Starbucks cup than with a McDonald's cup. I take that back. I have McDonald's clients. I always only buy McDonald's coffee. So, no.
Vanessa, parting thoughts?
At the end of the day, I mean, I really think that that everything that we've talked about today is it's one of those kind of like business common sense, but for lawyers, business common sense is not always common sense. So I mean, I really think that a lot of this stuff is things that businesses do, but that we as lawyers don't always look at ourselves as a business, and we don't always do it. So hopefully all the people who got to watch or listen are listening and thinking of how they can, business-ize their firms in a better way, because ultimately it's going to make them more money.
Awesome. Well, let me just thank both of you for joining us today. I didn't even mention at the beginning, 2 Law Firm 500 recipients, I think maybe 2 or 3 years in a row. So 2 of the fastest growing law firms in the country were on with us today. So thank you both for carving out time and joining us. For everyone else out there, thank you for joining us as well. Again, contact information is on the screen. And do us a favor before you sign out. If you have a chance to drop a quick a comment or piece of feedback in the chat area, I'd really appreciate that. We're hoping to do more things like this where it's not just your traditional webinar. So we'd love to get your feedback so we can create content and experience that is more of what you want. So thanks for joining us today, and farewell, everyone.
Thanks, Mark.